Local history, local culture, local events, your community. This is the Joe Kelly Show.
And welcome to the show, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Phil Bean's our guest. Phil wears many hats in the community. He's a local historian, he's a lecturer, he's an author, and he also is involved with the Landmark Society of Greater Utica. He heads up a group called Olmsted City. We're going to be talking about Olmsted City and a bunch of other things involving our parks. But before we do that, we're going to say welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you as well. Thank you.
Landmark Society, people have a pretty good grasp of what landmarks is. Maybe not so good of a grasp on what the Olmsted City is and what the Olmsted City Project is that you're in charge of.
So Olmsted City is a program under the nonprofit umbrella of Landmark Society of Greater Utica. And Olmsted City exists to accomplish a number of different purposes. One is to raise awareness about Utica's unusually extensive and significant Olmsted heritage, and I can say more about what that means in a moment. Also, we seek to preserve it and restore it, and we are focusing particularly on F.T. Proctor Park in East Utica. And then finally, we want to give Uticans another good, positive, uplifting, but true story to tell about themselves, and that story is that we are an Olmsted City.
When we talk about, you mentioned the extensive park system we have, really it is unusual in a city like Utica to have this park system. We've got Roscoe Conkling Park, and we've got Thomas Proctor and Frederick Proctor Parks, which adjoin. And it really came about, did it not, Phil? Because of the generosity and looking ahead, the visionaries of a particular family.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, of course, this is all thanks to the Proctors, especially Thomas R. Proctor and his wife Mariah, who were people of great vision. And so, to give some quick factoids about the significance and immensity of what we have here. Those three parks, Roscoe Conkling Park, Thomas R. Proctor Park, F.T. Proctor Park, and the parkway that Olmsted designed to connect them all, cover an area of 600 acres, which is about 70% the size of Central Park. And it also constitutes about 80 to 90% of Utica's public parkland. Utica is the 10th most populous city in New York State, but it is number 5 in the amount of acreage of public parkland we have inside the city. And to put it another way, there's only one city that has more urban public parkland than Utica, and that is Rochester in this state. Mm-hmm. So and as I said, it's 70% the size of Central Park, and we have 4% the population of Manhattan. Right. So it's kind of an outsized park system. It's magnificent.
Yeah, and the Proctors just didn't give this land to the city. They were responsible, were they not, for how it got designed?
Yes, they were. And initially, Thomas R. Proctor tried to lobby for the city of Utica to build the park system, but got a lot of pushback from that. And so basically, he and his wife said, well, if the city's not going to do it, we have the money to make it happen. And so they built a few parks first, because they also built Addison Miller and Horatio Seymour Park and Watson Williams Park on James Street. But then they put together 385 acres that would become Roscoe Conkling Park, and Thomas R. Proctor went to work on it and said, this is I'm in way over my head. I need an expert. And a friend of his said, well, I know Frederick Law Olmsted Jr., and I can introduce you. And he did that in the winter of 1906. And that began about 40 years of involvement by Olmsted and his company, Olmsted Brothers in Utica.
And this Olmsted Jr., this was the son of the Olmsted who designed Central Park.
Yes, so the father, whose bicentennial, the bicentennial of his birth is this year, and there's a national celebration called Olmsted 200 that celebrates the father, but also the work of the sons, was co-designer of Central Park, of Prospect Park in Brooklyn, the Boston Parks Parkway system, all over the country, the Biltmore Estate in Asheville, North Carolina. He was the man who invented the American urban park. Now, around 1897, he retired, and his two sons, John Charles and Frederick Law Olmsted Jr., took over, and they created a firm called Olmsted Brothers. Now, Dad had a big resume, big and impressive resume, and he was a highly influential figure. Well, Junior, who did the work in Utica, had a pretty good resume of his own. He did the landscape design for the White House, the Jefferson Memorial, the National Cathedral. He helped start the National Park Service, save the giant redwoods, and on it goes. So, and he did a lot of work on national parks, as well as urban parks and college and university campuses.
Now, the Olmsted City Project has a way for people to get involved with this financially and physically. You're looking for volunteers, right? You're looking for money.
That's correct. We do not have an endowment. We do not have paid staff. It is a completely volunteer-run organization. Occasionally we have to hire a stonemason to do some of the work that we have been doing restoring F.T. Proctor Park. So we do seek volunteers, and if you want to be a volunteer, you simply send us an email. The email address is Olmsted City, one word, at gmail.com, and Olmsted is spelled S-T-E-D, no A. It's not like instead, it's just stead. The address can be found on our Facebook page, which is very active. It can be found on our website, which is olmstedcity.org. You can also give through our website, and we also have a P.O. box where people can send checks. And so, and when we get people's money, we don't plow it into our endowment, we invest it. And that's what we did a lot of this spring.
And if somebody forgets all those spellings and addresses, they could probably go to Facebook too, right? Is there a connection there?
Absolutely. We have a fairly active Facebook presence. We do a number of posts a week, and you can find it by searching. The first time you search it, you have to say Olmsted City of Greater Utica, because if you just say Olmsted City, you'll get a place in Oklahoma.
Oh. What about, could they also, is there a connection electronically between Olmsted City Project and Landmarks?
I'm trying to think if Landmarks website needs some work and it hasn't been updated in a little while. So, but if you send a check, if you want to contribute money, if you send a check to the Landmark Society and say this is for Olmsted City, they will get it to us. Mm-hmm. And if you want to send a note to them or an email to them and say that you'd like to volunteer, they will get the word to us eventually.
And what's I'm trying to think how long Landmark Society's been around. It's been around a long time.
1974. Yeah.
74.
Yeah, yep.
And Olmsted City Project is pretty new.
Yep, we founded it at the end of August of last year.
Mm-hmm. And whose idea was it? I think I might be looking at them.
Yes, it's my fault. No, I have a group of friends and I got together and decided that this is what we wanted to do for the community as an act of public service to promote the best interests of the town we love.
Okay, when we come back, let's talk about what's actually being done in the parks, number one, and number two, what you'd like to have done if you can get the funding for it.
Terrific.
Phil Bean's our guest. Short break, right back. And welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us. Phil Bean's our guest. Phil is a member of the Board of Directors at Landmark Society of Greater Utica, and he's also the driving force behind the Olmsted City Project, which is ongoing. Before the break, Phil, you mentioned some of the things that are actually going on, have been going on at the parks. What have you been able to accomplish so far?
Well, sometime in March we hit the ground running, and since then we have planted 2,000 trees, shrubs, and perennial grasses and flowers in the park.
Which parks?
F.T. Proctor Park. Right now we're concentrating at F.T. Proctor, and there are a lot of reasons for that, not the least of which is it's going to have a centennial next year, the centennial of its donation to the people of Utica.
Now, let me interrupt you. Hang on to your thought.
Sure, go.
F.T. Proctor is which one? We've got
Yep.
Proctor and Proctor.
So the Thomas R. Proctor is the one that has all the playing fields, the big soccer field.
The one more to the south.
Well, to the west, I would say, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then T.R. Proctor Park is the one at the corner of Rutger and Culver Avenue that has those big granite pillars with the big sort of decorative balls on top.
The one closer to Bleecker Street.
Exactly, exactly. That has a huge 16-acre meadow in the front.
Yeah, I hope I didn't make you lose your thought. Go
No,
ahead.
no,
You
not
were,
at all.
You were planting trees and perennials
So
and
we've
bushes.
so we've planted about 2,000 plants. We have installed 5 benches,
How much did that cost, all that planting? That was not inexpensive.
well, the planting and everything else I'm going to describe to you set us back about $32,000 to $35,000. And when you consider that most of this was done by volunteers, it would cost probably double that if we had to pay people. The only person we had to pay was a stonemason to do some of this work. Otherwise, we enjoyed the free voluntary help of about 50 to 60 volunteers. Not all at one time, but sometimes we had groups of about 25 helping us. And this happened in stages. And so we did the benches, we did the planting. We repaired the base of a staircase that was built by and we found that the water, there's a pipe that had spring water emanating from it. And Italian immigrants used to take bottles and fill them up to drink for health purposes years ago. Well, we found out the water wasn't just coming from that pipe. It was coming from the entire base of this 25-foot wide staircase. So what we ended up doing was we switched gears and we created about a 600 cubic foot French drain with like about 40 tons of crushed stone. And then we put on top of that a 250 square foot patio that now showcases that staircase nicely. The water drains, the weeds are gone. And then finally, we also cleaned some of the beds that we had created over the last few years. Especially the gate has been regroomed again, and we also planted some flowers there thanks to Chester's florists. And then the final thing we did was the gate and a bridge down in the lower level of the park were blocked by the city with these gigantic white cement blocks to prevent cars from going there. That was the best they had. We had them remove those, and we installed historically appropriate steel bollards, these posts that are more decorative and they are more inviting and they fit with the historic feel of the park.
Yeah, you know where the a creek comes into the lower park?
Yep.
And I'm trying to think where that is. That part of I can't think of the name of it now. Do you know the name of it?
It's the Starch Factory Creek, yeah.
Starch Factory Creek.
So it comes down from the hill and it goes through both Proctor Parks.
Yeah.
And then an FT, it goes into a tunnel that takes it to the Mohawk River.
Yes, that's what I was thinking of.
Yep.
That tunnel.
Yep.
What kind of shape is that in?
Well, so the tunnel predates the park, and I think it was built by a railroad, and it was built in 1905. And there is a crack at the top of the arch, and that's probably because there's a lot of weight on top of their trees. Something needs to be done about it, but it could be a very, very expensive proposition. But if it collapses, it could be a real disaster.
Who owns that?
The tunnel, I'm not sure anymore who really owns that. The waterway is controlled by the Army Corps of Engineers because that part of the park is a floodplain. Mm-hmm. The consensus is it's not in imminent danger, but over the long term it will become a problem.
Mm. And I can remember a picture postcard. Maybe you've seen it. You're a historian. The creek coming through, a footbridge going over the creek. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Do you know the card I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, there are a series of cards like that. So in the lower level of that park, there were 2 ponds. Neither one exists anymore. One was built into the creek. Olmsted designed very elaborately, and Proctor footed the bill for it, to create a pond, an artificial pond, that by widening the creek and then building a kind of a moat around a piece of land to create an island. And there was a bridge to the island, and then there was a bridge, then there was a waterfall, and there was a bridge across the waterfall, and then there was a bridge where the current stone one is. And these were all white wooden latticework bridges. Then on the other side of the road, there was a kind of serpentine shape or kidney shaped pond that had this, and you've probably seen a picture of this, it had a round domed neoclassical gazebo with columns. Well, in the 30s, there'd been flooding from day one down there, and in the 30s, when the Works Progress Administration, which was a New Deal organization that put unemployed workers to work, came into town with millions. They said to the city of Utica, what would you like us to do? And they said, we want you to solve the flooding problem. And their solution was to eliminate the ponds, and unfortunately, and then to put walls in the creek. So when you go down to both of the Proctor Parks, you'll see these stone walls there. Those were put up as a flood control measure. Unfortunately, they don't suffice when it really, we have a heavy downpour such as we had in October 2019 when the whole place was
Was it the WPA project that built those stone bathrooms?
Yes.
Yeah.
The so-called bathhouses that look like little hobbit houses,
Yeah.
which are on the Lily Pond Plateau. There are two of them in each of the three parks in this system. They were built as restrooms in 1938, and at the same time, the staircase that's nearby that I just described that we fixed, that was also built in the same period.
Yeah.
The WPA did a lot of work in the parks.
And probably only got 30 seconds, but probably two in Roscoe Conkling Park. You can still see them if you go up there, those old big fireplaces.
Yes,
that
the
cook.
WPA did those as well, and the WPA paved all the parks up until the 1930s. The park roads were all dirt, and then they were paved at that time.
When we come back, we'll talk about the plans that you have, if you can get the money and the manpower, the plans you have
Thanks.
upcoming for those parks. Phil Bean's our guest. We're talking about Utica's extensive park system. Short break, right back. And welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us. Phil Bean's our guest. Phil is the driving force behind this project to the Olmsted City Project to get our parks back where they should be and where they once were. And what do you got on the near term if you can get the money? In fact, we got to talk about that matching grant that you've got. I could talk about that right now.
So we have an exciting initiative we're going to try to promote this summer and fall. Which is to raise money for a once-in-a-century fix to the Lily Pond. And so for those who aren't familiar with Roscoe Conkling, at Frederick T. Proctor Park, there is a cement reflecting pool. It's one of the most iconic and popular features of the park. It was designed by Olmsted in 1913. We have the original blueprints for it. It is, I think, the single most important surviving piece of Olmsted design work in the park system. But after 110 years of service, it's showing its age. It's kind of falling apart, and it's been patched up in various ways, but it really needs a fix that will last for another century. So we want to safeguard that for the future, and at the same time, it's on this plateau where those bathhouses are. There are two staircases. There are a number of pathways that terminate there. The road goes by, but none of it's connected. So we want to create a kind of winding Olmsted-style pathway that would be landscaped with trees and shrubs and benches that would create a series of mini destinations where people can get different views and relax. And also it would be handicapped accessible so that people who have mobility impairments could go through the plateau and visit all these features. And then it would create more connectivity in the park, creating more walking loops. And that gets us into a part of our motivation, which is these public health research shows that time spent in urban public parks like these generate very significant mental and physical health benefits. And it's especially so when there are loops. People are like 80% more likely to go to parks that have loops. Now the whole project we estimate, and it's hard with current economic conditions to really be absolutely precise, but the best estimate we have is the project would cost $150,000 to pull off. An anonymous philanthropist from Manhattan has put up a $50,000 match challenge. So for every dollar that a Utican gives, he will match it with $1 until the Utica contribution gets up to 50. Then we'll have $100,000, and that'll take us 2/3 the way to doing this project.
What happens if you don't get to that level?
Well, if we don't get to this level by November 1st, which is our target date, because we want to be able to contract it for the spring, because there's a particularly advantageous window in construction schedules in the spring for this kind of work, then the money will be kept in the coffers of the Landmark Society of Greater Utica. And I, by the way, don't have the ability to spend this money directly. It has to be approved by the treasurer of Landmark Society. So we'll keep it in the accounts of the Landmark Society of Greater Utica, and we'll do one of two things. We'll either relaunch the campaign, or we'll simply invest it in other ways in the park. But we're hoping that the community can pull together. And one thing I should emphasize is we have to raise $100,000 to, in addition to this $50,000 match challenge. But the donor also wants us to get at least 250 donations. And he said, I don't care if people give $10. He said, if you get 250 people to give as much as they can, I'll be happy with that. So we have to raise $100,000, and we have to get 250 people at least to participate in that.
Yeah.
So there's room for everybody to play a role in this.
Have you got any fundraisers plans, or is it just going to be people have to step forward and write a check?
Well, we are going to be beginning a public information campaign in the coming week or so. And in the fall, there's something called Mohawk Valley Gives, which is a new initiative by the Landmark Society by the Community Foundation of Herkimer and Oneida Counties. It's going to be kind of like Giving Tuesday, but only for Utica. It's going to be in September, the Utica area, the Mohawk Valley area. And so we're going to be, that's going to be the project that we're going to present in the Mohawk Valley Gives initiative.
Is this the September 9th doubleheader that you were telling me about before the show?
No, that's something altogether different.
All right.
So on top of our fundraising, and all the work that we've been doing to try and keep the park in good condition and public education, I should mention we also have a 6-part series of short videos on YouTube that are accessible through our website that called Utica and Olmsted City. In September, on September 10th, we're going to have a Proctor Olmsted Day, which is going to be family-friendly entertainment from 10 to 4 in Frederick T. Proctor Park. Simultaneously, the Redeemer Church in Utica has decided to revive the Redeemer Cup, which is Utica's soccer World Cup of tournament, and so the various refugee groups competing against one another for the city championship.
That's in the same park, right?
That's in TR Proctor.
Oh, TR, right.
And they're conjoined twins, and it's like a 5-minute walk between the two of them.
Right.
So we're going to have something that might be unprecedented, at least in the last 80 years. We're going to have 2 events going on simultaneously in these 2 Proctor parks. And we're pretty excited about it, and we have the Bank of Utica is going to be sponsoring our component, the Proctor Olmsted Day.
It's the really an exciting time for the parks. I remember years and years ago they actually closed the gates on the city's parks so as not to let people in, and now here this revival is coming. Pretty exciting.
Yeah, we're excited, and we're very happy to be a partner with the City of Utica on this. I should note that all over the country, historic parks like this went into decline in the 70s and 80s. Cities just didn't invest the money to keep them up. And in places like New York and Buffalo and in Rochester, these parks have revived, and it was thanks to private organizations working in partnership with the local city government that turned them around, and that's what we're trying to do here in Utica.
And so people who want to help, whether to volunteer or to write a check, how do they do it?
So to volunteer, again, you could send us an email at olmstedcity@gmail.com. You can send a check to our P.O. Box. It's P.O. Box 8597, Utica 13501. or you can go to our website and give online through our website.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think we're going to have you come back as the summer progresses and give us an update.
I'd love to.
If you would. Okay.
Thanks a lot, Joe.
Thank you. That's going to do it for us this week. Don't forget cnyhomepage.com. Speaking of websites, there's lots of good stuff there. Until next time, take care of yourself, everybody.